Hello, true believers. Welcome to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is not Brent Casino. My name is Jim Afanis, and from time to time, Brent asks me to review comic books for you. Today, we're taking a look at Marvel Zombies. Is by Robert Kirkman and by Sean Phillips, and Brent gave me this trade paperback to read for you guys. And before I get into the nitty-gritty, I always caveat all of these videos with two things. Number one, if you guys like the content you see, please consider commenting, rating, and subscribing, because it will help Brent with his goal of world domination and YouTube monetization. And number two, I will be getting into some spoilers for this comic book review. So if you have not yet read this and you don't want to be spoiled, save this video for later, and I will see you guys when you have finished it. For everybody else, let's talk a little bit about Marvel Zombies. Now, I like the zombie genre a lot, and I think this is kind of topical, well, maybe a little late, in the sense that Robert Kirkman just wrapped up the Walking Dead comic book series, and I'm playing Days Gone, which is very heavily inspired by zombies. And I felt like when Brent gave me this, it was like, oh wow, he's channeling the inner Jim. He knows that this is something that I would be interested in. So I have to say, after reading it, this is one of the weirdest comic books I've ever read. I don't know if I would have asked for this. It's a very weird crossover when you think of a very established universe like Marvel or DC, with tons of heroes and tons of villains and more lore and backstory that you really could ever try to understand. What they've done here is they've said, okay, you know who a lot of these guys are. What happens if they all become zombies? Which is interesting because there's a lot of different routes you can go. In this particular universe, and I do consider myself quite a zombie buff, loving zombie films and television shows, and just really reading a lot of post-apocalyptic books about zombies. I do like the whole genre a lot. These zombies are very self-aware. A lot of times you have zombies or the the mindless and shambles walking, ooh, your brains, very, very slow. These zombies still seem to retain most of their wit and intelligence. It's just now they're decaying and they have a hunger for human flesh. They dabble a little bit in this book about what happens when these superheroes, now turned zombies, do not eat human flesh, and that they kind of revert into this more animalistic state. And it's only after they eat that they kind of normalize a little bit and they become a little bit more self-aware. Unfortunately, that plot thread is dropped by the second book, and even though a lot of these zombies are really hungry for a long time, they seem to be pretty self-aware, and they seem to come up with a lot of really clever ways to take down some of the bigger villains that they're going to face in the book, and just kind of some of the traps and hurdles that they lay for the survivors, And it was weird that they kind of introduced that theme and then it's largely overlooked. So I know this was an episodic book. This trade encapsulates all 5 of the comic book episodes. And Robert Kirkman is the writer through all 5. I'm not really sure why he dropped that plot thread so quickly. It just seemed kind of fall flat, and that was a little disappointing because they did spend kind of a long time talking about it, and then they're like, never mind. So the other criticism I have about it is that it's a very weird story. Anytime you get into a zombie book, these what ifs, these elseworlds, whatever you want to call them, those are the books that I really like. Only because the writer has real liberty here on doing something unique and something fun that hasn't been done with the series. You don't have to worry about ruining some sort of lineage or, how's this going to set up to sell episodic comic books for the next year. You could write what you want to write, do what you want to do, and bam, it's done. So while I respect that, this just took the Marvel Universe in such a random, bizarre direction. And it was very odd to see Colonel America missing half of his head throughout most of the story. Wolverine loses his arm. It just got really unnecessarily gory, which really wasn't gory. Like, my stomach didn't scream or anything, or anything like that. It was just, it took it in a weird direction. But I will say that weirdness is also its greatest strength, and what I really liked about this comic book, really more than any other comic book I can even think that I've read, is they really depict violence very, very well in this. Now, I don't need to see like a snuff film or anything like that, but what I liked is that when the heroes fight each other, and inevitably they do fight, they fight Magneto at the beginning, they fight against each other towards the end, Galactus, or Galagus, I don't know, the really big guy, he shows up for a while. There's like half of the comic is dedicated to them fighting him. You really get a sense of the destruction that they're causing to one another as their arms and limbs blow off and their jaws blow off, and Iron Man's ripped in half, and Captain America, Colonel America, the top of his head is cut off. I like that. I like that these fights had some intensity to them. Now, I don't need it to this level, but a lot of times I watch Arrow or Flash or even just any of the comics that I read, and when heroes fight each other, they never really win or lose. It's just they kind of skirmish. There's one cool action scene, and then the bad guy gets away, or the good guy gets away to retreat, or whatever. And there's never really any emphasis or oomph. You never really see Iron Man, with a big dent in his armor and like him really injured, because that would kind of ruin the ambiance and the lore of a happy-go-lucky comic book. I think that's why, to me, reading just bits and pieces of the Nightfall saga, where Bruce Wayne's back is broken by Bane, that's really the only time I can ever think in any kind of comics, and I'm sure Brent will correct me, where you really saw anybody really take a really hard lick and set them back for a significant amount of time. Now, the fact that this book has, no ties into the real world, you can cut Captain America in half, Iron Man in half, no big problem. Magneto can get devoured and completely shredded in seconds. Wolverine's arm can fall off. I think at one point Spider-Man's leg decays off. You can carry around decapitated heads and throw them on people, and some of the heroes that survive have big gashes missing out of their body. I like that. I like that this book had some emphasis in the combat. I think it did a really good job of depicting that. And I kind of hope, as I skim through the pages and I think about other comics, I hope that they try to push some of this violence a little bit more and depict how powerful these heroes are against each other. I would suspect if I had to rate this book in terms of like a television rating, this is definitely a rated R book. Not so much for language. I don't really think they cuss ever. But just in the themes and some of the violence is where most of the other comic books I read are more like PG or G rated. And I think that's maybe what hurts the franchise as a whole, is there's nothing out there, at least mainstream, that I've seen that really paints a bleak, dark image. And that's, I think, why I'm so drawn to the Batman books that I constantly talk about on this channel, because at least with those, you get a sense of craziness and grittiness that you don't get anywhere else. So the plot is very, very bizarre, as I mentioned. Zombies have taken over the earth. They figure out a way to eat and devour other zombies, and there's this kind of hierarchy between zombies. Somehow Iron Man makes himself like the leader. He's kind of calling the shots as they attack other groups of settlements to eat more people. But ultimately, all the superheroes eat all the people on the earth, and they need to find other Earths to go to. And despite the best efforts of the galaxy to self-correct itself, ultimately the zombies reign triumphant, and they leak out into other universes. And the last couple frames or cells or whatever of the book depict them landing on other planets and beginning to spread zombieism. So it was weird. it was weird character development. If you didn't know anything about these superheroes, this isn't going to tell you anything. There was definitely some funny lines in here. They're very, very self-aware that they were zombies. They made a lot of jokes about like, oh, my arm just fell off, or oh, that shouldn't have been decayed. The art style, I think, was really good, although I think they went a little overboard on the teeth. I was trying to find a good sell. Here's an example of that. So my favorite guy is this guy right here, the Juggernaut. He's my favorite villain ever. I love Juggernaut. He's just so, so cool. So you see how you could see his teeth really like depicted very, very prominently? Teeth are like this book could have been called Marvel Teeth, because just about every time they draw somebody, you just see their teeth like this. I get it. zombies decay, they lose their teeth, or rather their gums, so as time goes on, this part of their skin starts to shrivel up. But they're just all like this the entire time, and it was honestly really distracting. It really, really was. Would I recommend this to other people? If your best friend lets you borrow it, yes. If you went out and bought this, no. Even though I did say that I think the violence is cool, maybe a quick page turn at your favorite comic book store just to see like how hard some of these people hit, and watching people get, ripped to shreds is somewhat interesting. Juggernaut gets his head blown off. Just, I don't know. It's weird. It is what it is. If you like zany, goofy, nonsensical Elseworld stuff and you really like zombies, check this out. If you are more into more grounded stuff, I think you'd be better served checking out Batman Year One or Dark Knight Dark Knight Returns, or The Nail. At least those a little more emphasis. This is something I'll forget about just as finished as I hit upload on this video. So with that, I hope you guys found this video informative. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.